I guess Lindsay here with Storybook Family Farm. So it should be relatively quiet during this video because we did just lock all of the animals up. Um, Thankfully, with how our property is laid out in the evening time, our garden is actually in the full shade, so I can actually stand over here. It's still currently, the real feel is like 90 degrees Fahrenheit, so I mean, it's still pretty hot, but because of the heat wave has been pretty ongoing the entire week, my body's actually finally now starting to adjust to it where I'm not sweating buckets when it's like real feel of 90. So that's kind of nice that this heat wave happened in the beginning of summer so that way I can adjust to those hot temperatures without like struggling throughout the entire summer of, up and down like Ohio weather normally is. But I thought I would actually show you guys how parts of the garden are doing because we have a lot of cool weather crops growing in here. And as the name sounds, they don't do well when it's really hot. But I wanted to show you guys how just the simple act of me mulching before the heat wave happened, how much that has helped the plants because it's kind of like a garden explosion has happened in here. And it's really blowing my mind because like, I honestly was really concerned that most of our stuff would perish or a large portion of items would perish in the garden because of how hot and dry it's been. But surprisingly, doing all the mulch has helped far more than I could have anticipated, which I knew it would help, but I didn't realize it'd be this big of a help. But so it was just a few days ago whenever I showed you guys my video of preparing the garden bed for the heat wave. I think that was on Sunday and today is Friday, so not that much time has passed. But so these here are all different like summer squashes and yellow squashes, zucchinis, things of that nature. So they've about tripled in size since Sunday, which, those things, they do grow fast. So that's not that big of a deal. That's not that surprising. But guys, I want to show you the brassicas. So anything in the brassica family is like cabbage, kale, kohlrabi, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, things like that, turnips and rutabagas, and I'm not sure if there's anything else in there. I'm sure mustard and collard greens, but I don't have any of them growing this year. But so I want to show you guys the kale and the kohlrabi row that I have here. Like these things are so stinking thick. Like you have to like look at the stems to figure out which one is a kohlrabi and which one is a kale because they've just sort of all grown together, and they are very, very healthy looking plants. So there's a little bit of pest damage here, so there's a little bit of holes there, but that's really not that big of a deal. And here I could see some, I don't know if the camera can pick it up. Yep, there we go. That shiny looking stuff on the leaf here, that's actually from slugs. So that's from a slug coming through and basically slobbering all over the plant. So I probably will have to bring a couple of the ducks in here somewhat soon. I'll probably wait until the heat wave is done, so that way I can bring them in here and monitor them and supervise them while they're in the garden snacking on slugs and things of that nature. It'll definitely be better if I can wait till after it rains because the slugs then will be all over the plants like crazy, and then the ducks will be able to very effectively come through and remove the pests from the garden. I am so glad that we have ducks on this property because of the fact that they are really good at finding water and showing us where we can put a pond at. But they're also really good at, because this property does have a tendency to stay wetter than normal. I don't know what is going on with the lighting today. But since this property has a tendency to stay wetter than normal, it makes it so that way the ducks are able to get a huge buffet of slugs and snails and things of that nature. So it cuts down on the feed bill, makes them happy, but the ducks are able to effectively remove the pests from the garden, whereas the chickens, they would get distracted by all of the goodies that we have growing, but the ducks are much more interested in slugs, which is really good because slugs are gross. But so I want to show you guys too how big some of the cabbages and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and things of that nature are becoming. This bed here, I didn't have enough dried grass to mulch the entire thing. But these plants are really, really able to thrive through this heat wave, which really, honestly, it surprised me. I've been growing food for quite a while now, and normally the cold weather crops, they get really stunted whenever it's hot like this, especially when it's also dry. So somehow, by the grace of God, these things just keep on going. They keep growing, and they're happy. I think that a lot of it is due to mulching and making sure that everything stays wet. But as you can see down here, there is some more pest pressure that is over in here. I assume that there's probably some cabbage moths that have been laying eggs and having little caterpillars and stuff in here too, which the ducks and geese will happily remove them all for me. And if they don't get them all, then all of the wasps that we have in this area, wasps are actually really good to have near your garden. That camper that you guys have seen multiple times in the background there, that thing is like a host for wasps. So we have not cleaned it out. We use that basically as a storage shed to move to this property. And we just simply have not had a chance to clean it out because, well, the shed that's here, the roof leaks really bad. So we're not gonna clean that out and put it in another leaky roof area. But that thing is a lot of different wasps living inside of there. And wasps, for the most part, are pretty chill. They're much more concerned with going out into the garden space and actually like killing different things and attacking different pests and predators for the garden than they are actually at attacking us. And when I talk about wasps, I'm meaning like the paper wasps and the mud daubers, and then there's some other parasitic wasps. I do not mean hornets. Hornets are jerks. Yellow jackets, totally jerks. But figured I should clarify. But so they will actually, them and the praying mantises will actually do a really good job of taking care of a lot of different pests that I can't have the ducks and geese come in here and do, just because they would damage way too much. So the other thing that's been going really good is the beans. And as you guys can see behind me here, we do have some more squashes growing. I'm kind of at a bad spot to show you because there was a bare spot here that I sowed more seeds in after I filmed the last video that was in the garden. But so our bush beans are actually doing really well. One of the nice things about having grass walkways throughout the garden is it does naturally help retain a lot of moisture in the soil, but it also invites different insects to come. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it or not, but those little white specks there throughout the garden rows are actually clover. So it's actually inviting in different native pollinators and my neighbor's honeybees to come in and get the pollen and the nectar and stuff from the clover. And then it's also telling everybody, hey, there's a food source here. We should come back and pollinate later on in the future. The other reason too that I also leave grass walkways is so that way we can also use our rabbit tractors in the garden when it's not super hot, because this is a more full sun area. Everybody's hiding in the shade still. But so we can actually run the rabbit tractors through the walkways here, so that way the rabbits will basically mow the grass in this walkway for us while also fertilizing it, so in that way it creates better grass in here. The other thing too that we do with the grass is I will take the push mower with a bagger on it, and I will actually come through and I cut down the grass, put it in the bagger, stick it in the wheelbarrow, and then I end up either I will dry it for hay to make for bedding for the ducks and geese, or I will just, while it's still fresh and green and all that stuff, I'll give some to the rabbits that are in cages. And I will also distribute it to the different goats and stuff, so that way they can have a big buffet of grasses. And then sometimes too, I make yard hay with it, for either for bedding or for them to eat at a future date. But so check out these bush beans here. These things, which you can't really see it very well because the grass is high. I should have filmed after cutting the grass, but we're in a bit of a drought and a heat wave that would destroy my soil. So not gonna do that. But so the garden beds here are actually on this side of the garden. They're actually recessed down into the soil a little bit. So these beans here are about, I'd say, they're probably 8 to 10 inches tall, somewhere in there. So then I planted some pole beans up against there's a trellis here, there's a fence here. It's hard to see in this lighting. But so I did plant some pole beans along the edge here, and this is actually starting to send up a little runner here. The reason that I do pole beans and bush beans is the bush beans, they're more like a determinate tomato. They will actually, after a certain amount of time, they will just start mass producing all at one time. They'll give you a huge flush, and they usually produce their beans a lot faster than the pole bean varieties. The pole bean varieties, they will produce a slow trickle throughout the entire season. And in all honesty, I think that the pole beans, over the length of the entire season, if it is a good season, if you have a long growing season. In Ohio, I think our growing season is like 150 or 170 days. It's a big long span, but you can't utilize that for every crop, but it's still a big long span. So you have a good long growing season. So I like to plant the bush varieties because they will produce a very big crop early on. And then once they're about tapered out and about tuckered out, you can actually cut them back and plant different stuff in this particular bed to succession plant with something else that is more of a cold weather crop, like do more kale or broccoli or things of that nature that can handle the cold temperatures and the early frosts. But when they're dying out and they're tuckering out, that's when the pole beans then start really putting on a show and a big flush of energy and a massive amount of beans. So I try to, anywhere that I have fence lines or things of that nature, I try to utilize that vertical growing space that I'm already going to have in place so that way the ducks, geese, chickens, turkeys, all of those things, and wild rabbits and deer don't walk into the garden all willy-nilly. Also groundhogs, those are the other garden pests that we battle here. Those things can't walk into the garden all willy-nilly, but then I can use that 4-foot fence to then grow things vertically up it, so that way I'm really maximizing the space that I have. Those were techniques that I learned when we still lived in town and had a very small space that we could actually garden on, and I really fell in love with the aesthetic of it, because on the outside it does look messy, but when you're standing inside of it, it feels like you're in your own little realm, your own world, and it feels magical to be hidden inside of your garden space just by all the plants that you planted yourself. It's a really magical, immersive experience. Plus it gives you a ton more food to be able to just grow things upward, because each bean plant, like as you guys can see, I plant these guys really close together. It basically causes, that way there's no competition for weeds. Like the weeds get suppressed by the leaves of the beans, and the beans, they really like the buddy system of having other beans right near them, so that way if the soil stays moist, you don't have to mulch it because they're naturally doing that with shading it out themselves. It makes it really easy for picking, and it just saves space. Everything that I do is to save space. We only have 2 acres here, and we only actually homestead on about 3/4 of an acre. We have a lot of animals, a lot of things growing. The rest of our property is woods, very thick, dense old woods, so it's not ideal for trying to grow annuals in it, and there's a large deer population here, so we can't really plant fruit trees or nut trees or things like that out in the woods without putting extensive fencing up. Plus we hunt too, so we don't really want to destroy our hunting area, just so that way we can raise more livestock or grow things out in that area. So anytime that we can save space, that's what we do. But I really like growing like this. It makes it very fast, very simple to plant, harvest, and it causes the beans to really work together. And then as the beans are done, you just cut them off and let their roots stay in there. As the roots die back, they release nitrogen into the soil, causing it so that way your soil is getting blessed and benefited time and time again every single year that you do this. So it's really, really a helpful technique of doing it. But I'm going to hop over here. We have some more beans growing in here. I did replant beans on Sunday also after I filmed the last garden video, because there was some bare spots in there because I was using seed that I think the bush bean seed was probably from 2020, might be 2029 or 2029. I planted them from the future. That's what I did. I did the time warp, went to 29, brought them back, and was like, hey, let's see what they do. No, but they're either from 2020 or 2019, somewhere in there. So the tomato plants, they have not really had much of a growth spurt or anything with this heat wave. They're all about the same size here, but the radishes have really taken off that I have. And now you guys can actually kind of somewhat see. Let's see if I can get that in there. That right there, that is a little tiny carrot that is starting to come up. When I filmed the last garden tour, it was very few and far between. We had little baby carrots that were like 1/2 inch, maybe an inch tall. And now we have some that are, the leaves and stuff, they're about 5 inches tall, 4 inches tall, somewhere in there. So that's a big jump from just, like a week and a half ago from filming. But so we actually, the other night, I came out here and I actually picked a couple of radishes so that way Tracy and I could have a little late night snack. And we had our first ripe tomato, which I haven't told her that I spotted some. So I'm gonna, because I know she's gonna watch this, and if I eat this on camera, then she's gonna be really, really ticked off that I didn't share it. But so we planted these. They're a specific type of cherry tomato. They're a hybrid. They're called a sun sugar is what they're called. Last year we planted some of them. We normally just do heirlooms, but we found them. They looked interesting. I don't know if you guys can see on my hand right there. That is a little baby slug that came off of the tomatoes. So definitely got to get the ducks in here soon, so then that way this guy does not turn into a big slug to eat all the tomatoes. Oh, speak of the slugs. Here's another one right here on this radish green. And I see another one. The slugs are back. Definitely gonna have to release the quacking in here. When I did that a couple weeks ago before we planted stuff in here, I let them in here for like 3 days. They really destroyed a lot of our strawberry plants, so we're not able to get much of a harvest off of them this year, but they did a huge number on the slugs. So since there's baby slugs, that means there's probably also slug eggs, so they'll probably enjoy eating them too. So I'll definitely have to grab a few ducks and throw them in here tomorrow probably for a couple of hours, so that way they can go through, destroy a bunch of slugs. Hopefully they don't do too much damage on the plants. But with how bad the slug pressure was last year, we planted probably 3 times as many tomatoes last year as we did this year. This year we did, I think, about 45 tomato plants. And last year we harvested maybe 40 pounds of tomatoes, which is really pathetic. But the slugs literally, they'll come to the partially ripe tomatoes and they will eat a huge hole in them and literally eat out the entire insides of the tomatoes. So you'll go up to them and what you'll see is like this perfect looking tomato on your side. You'll go to pick it off and your fingers just go straight through the entire thing because it's hollow. It's very, very frustrating. I never thought that slugs would make me so upset. At our last property, we had a big problem with voles, which are like a mole mixed with a mouse that only eats plants. They're a vegetarian type of critter. So they actually would come through, and as soon as like beans would start sprouting, they would just nom and chew off the entire plant. They also would just come through, and any plant that they seen that looked like it might be delicious, they literally would just right at the ground level would just, you'd see it, you'd get excited that it was like 2-3 inches tall. The next day it'd come out, it'd be gone. Voles and rabbits were really a nightmare when we lived in town. So far, we haven't had any rabbits come into the garden yet. There wasn't any wild rabbits here last year, so I think because of all of the work that we've done to this property, because it was abandoned and there was like 5-foot tall grass when we bought it, I think that all the work that we did here actually made it so that way the prey animals are actually feeling safe here. And so we had a wild rabbit actually give birth here, and we just seen one of the babies this evening. Actually, it was running around by the chickens, so it was kind of cute that it was in their little chicken run and just hopped out of the fence and stuff with them. So I might have to do some rabbit defenses for the garden this year, which that's not very hard. What I did in town with a lot of success was actually because they can actually hop through the 2-inch by 4-inch holes. Even an adult, just a cottontail rabbit, they can hop through that. They can squeeze their ass through there. I'm not really sure how. They must use some bacon grease or some lard or something, but they can wiggle their way through that hole and get into the garden and do a number on your crops. But so what I do is actually the bottom 2 rungs of the fencing, I actually attach some chicken wire to that and just drape it into the grass. I don't dig a hole or trench or anything. Once the grass starts growing up, it basically weaves into the chicken wire and grabs a hold of it really strongly and really well to prevent the rabbits from digging underneath of it. And it also makes it so they can't easily hop or push themselves through the holes in the fencing. So that's my rabbit defense tips if you guys are battling that. But our peppers are doing really well. So we have some poblano peppers that are ready to pick. We have some other hot peppers that are about ready to pick down in there. And we have some sweet peppers down that way that are ready to pick. Most of our winter squashes have germinated. They've popped up. So far in my experimental garden, which I want to show you guys in a future video, but right now it literally just looks like a big old pile of hay and manure mixed together because nothing has germinated yet except for a small handful of beans. Due to the hot, dry weather, I think that it really needs more moisture back there, but I don't have a long enough hose to spread all the way back past the ducks and geese area to water the experimental garden. So once things start popping up in there, I'm going to give you guys a full tour, explain to you how I did this, what my ideas were, what my methods were, and why I decided to experiment this year with, doing something very different. But so that's it for tonight. I'm starting to lose daylight, even though it doesn't look like it on camera. And I really would like to stop getting bit up by mosquitoes and eat these cherry tomatoes. So that way I don't have to only eat half of one. I could actually give Tracy her own, and I can have my own, and I can revel in the deliciousness of it. So If you guys are enjoying this video, please give this video a thumbs up. Let me know in the comment section below how your garden's doing, what pest pressure you're dealing with, and if you have any questions about what other things I'm doing to prevent different pests or invite beneficial insects to the garden or whatnot, leave it in the comment section. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you guys might have. Also, if you guys have suggestions of different varieties of different things for me to grow next year, leave it in the comment section of what your favorite varieties are, so that way I can make like a wish list in the seed catalogs and stuff, because I'm always down for trying new things. That's part of why I garden, is so that way I can try all of the things and experience all of the different flavors that this world has to offer. So, like I said, if you guys enjoy this content, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends on social media, and if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to help us grow. We'd greatly appreciate it. All right, thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.